speak out. We can tell the truth of what we've seen. We are not liars. Soldiers, speak out. We have a duty to all children and to their futures. Soldiers, speak out. 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 Soldiers, speak out.
Welcome to the Veterans Hour, a monthly program produced by the Veterans for Peace, Chapter 109, the Rachel Corrie chapter in Olympia, Washington. Tonight I want to dedicate this program to a Vietnam-era veteran who recently lost his life due to Parkinson's disease on January 16th. That was my twin brother, Dean Robert Mills, who was a sergeant in the Whitehouse Communications Agency under President Johnson and President Nixon. Tonight we have a very special topic, which is Vietnam then and now. Many of our viewing audience are Vietnam veterans and come with a lot of the baggage that people have experienced who fought in that war. Many of our members with our local chapters are Vietnam veterans. And tonight we wanted to have something that was very special. We have two people with us tonight, and one happened to experience Vietnam the first time, which most of our veterans have, as a combat infantryman, but then had an opportunity to return to Vietnam in a very different capacity. Mark Fleming and Dan Ryan were able to go there, and tonight with us is Mark Fleming and Maggie Reardon. And I've asked Maggie to be here to keep Mark honest and to tell some of the insights perhaps that we would like to hear. Vietnam is not a new war for us. Actually, according to our records, the 1st of November 1955, it started and then ended on the 30th of April in 1975. That's 19 years, 180 days. And tonight we're going to learn a little bit more about how this particular conflict affected you, Mark. And first of all, I want to welcome you, Mark, and Maggie for being with us. Mark, you've been with us before and shared a little bit, but you know, our viewing audience would like to get a better idea of how did you happen to get this McNamara Fellowship in Far Eastern Studies that landed you in Vietnam when you were quite a bit younger?
Simple fact of my age. I was born in the late 40s and was draft age in the late 60s, and when I graduated from college, I figured I'd just volunteer and get it over with. And being a college graduate, I thought perhaps I would get avoid combat, dodge the whole thing. And it turned out, no, I didn't. So I went to Vietnam, and I was an infantryman for about 6 months. And then the rest of my time, I was a company clerk. So I came back thinking, well, nothing happened. I had no real combat contact, or didn't have a lot of firefights. A lot of the stories that Vietnam veterans had. So I just went on about my life. So it was more just the fact, demographics. I was the wrong age at the right time, I guess.
And you were in a war zone, combat type of thing.
Yeah, I had the helmet, I had the rifle, the grenade, the whole works. I mean, I looked like an infantryman, sort of. I can't say I was particularly competent, but I survived.
And what years was that that you were there?
I was there in 1971, so 40 years ago exactly.
40 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. What were some of the experiences there that changed you, that you know, say, had an impact on your life, Mark?
I think just the whole idea that I was out there supposed to kill people. I was supposed to be carrying out these rather brutal operations, and I did it. I mean, I accepted that, and I willingly went. So that has always been with me. Seeing the aftermath of actions, you know, the dead bodies, the scorched earth, you know, the body bags. I mean, those kind of things have stayed with me. You know, I would read when I was clerk. I'd read the casualty reports every week, and I would just see all the, you know, mainly fragmentation wounds, mostly wounds, but they also had some, you know, traumatic amputations, which sounds so surgical, but that's getting your leg or arm blown off. So all of that is part of the cumulative experience.
And whereabouts in Vietnam were you?
We were in basically northeast of Saigon. If you know the geography of Vietnam, there's a mountain range that runs down and turns west, and then you have the Mekong Delta. Saigon is just one side of that, and we were in the mountains right where they play out into the Delta.
How were you psychologically prepared as a young infantryman for Vietnam?
Not really at all. It was mainly like, I want to, you know, they had us chant the songs that I want to go to Vietnam and kill a Charlie Kong and all this other stuff. But basically it was, okay, you're going to go over there and don't die. They said, don't step on a booby trap, don't pick up anything, follow the guy behind you, in front of you, and that was about it. They didn't really train us much at all. And I mean, they didn't even give us very good training on the weapons we were supposed to use. It was, okay, you fired it, good, here's a medal, go on to the next weapon. So it was more just like, suck it up and go.
Now, you did your basic training where?
At Fort Campbell and my infantry training at Fort Lewis.
At Fort Lewis.
Which is how I came to be here.
We're glad that you're here.
I fell in love with the area and decided any place you can fall in love with while being trained to go to Vietnam as an infantryman is a place worth checking out again.
Now, you've been part of Veterans for Peace for some time now. How was it that you joined Veterans for Peace? Why?
I joined in 2005. I didn't know about Veterans for Peace until I went to actually, Cindy Sheehan was in Arizona, where I was living at the time, and I went down to see her and support her, and I met some other members of Veterans for Peace in the Phoenix area and joined. And then when I moved up here, I looked you guys up. And it's you know, for many years, I didn't really think that much about it, or at least overtly. But when we went into Afghanistan, when we went into Iraq, suddenly many of the things that I thought I'd forgotten came back. I'd also had the experience a few years prior, well, actually in 2002, of hiking the Appalachian Trail, where I spent a lot of time on my own thinking about Vietnam because I was walking in the woods carrying a pack, and I didn't have the distractions of daily life. You know, I got back from Vietnam, I went to grad school, I got married, I started a career. I mean, all the things that you can do to distract yourself. And it wasn't until 2002 that all those distractions were gone, and suddenly I realized that, yeah, I did this. It happened. And it was more than just me going over there and nothing really you know, I didn't see any hard combat, but there was still the impact of doing that, of being part of that.
There were still things that affected you that didn't go away.
That's right.
Or wouldn't go away.
That's when I knew I had to come to terms with it.
Now, I know from the work that you do at volunteer work at Coffee Strong that you volunteer with veterans and also active duty people coming through, helping them with veterans benefits. But you also have an experience where that you've gotten some help from the Veterans Administration. Is that correct?
That's correct. I mean, I went to some of the veterans rap groups back in the 80s. You know, that was one of the first times I started realizing there were some things I probably wanted to process. And then after the Appalachian Trail, several veterans suggested that I apply for PTSD disability, which I did. And I was kind of surprised, but I got it. I thought, well, maybe nothing happened, so why would I have it? But when I went through the interview and they started asking me these questions, yeah, I sit with my back to the wall. I'm hyper vigilant. I do pay a lot of attention. I'm always ready to duck if something happens.
Maggie, have you noticed this in Mark over the years?
Yes. We've been together now 25
5 years, 26?
years.
Congratulations.
Yes. And I know at first you would make light of the idea of having your back to the wall, but even though you would try to make light of it, you still did it. And you always made sure that you could see people that were entering the room, if we were in a restaurant or in a public place. Yeah.
Did you ever notice him having any nightmares or things that he would talk in his sleep or anything mentioned Vietnam?
Not, I don't know that he mentioned Vietnam particularly, but I know there's been a couple of times that there's been some nightmares. I know that it's been on his mind 24/7.
Well, I know that as a result of this, you started thinking about going back, Mark, to Vietnam. Why?
Actually, I started thinking about going back to Vietnam in 1971.
In 71?
Yeah, I said, I should come back and pick up the trash, because we littered. I mean, we did a lot of other things that were worse, but we left trash around. You remember the Oliver Guthrie in Malice's restaurant? He was arrested and had to pick up the trash. I thought, yeah, I should go back and pick up the trash. But that was kind of a joke. But then when I hiked the Appalachian Trail, it dawned on me, I really should go back. So then I started thinking about, well, how will I do it, under what circumstances? And it took a while, but I finally had some time and the money and made the arrangements. And probably, I mean, the fact that it was 40 years, I went back to Vietnam almost 40 years to the day. So there was that little bit of karma as well. But it was something I felt I really should do, because I can't change the previous experiences. I mean, that's always with me. What I can do, though, is add experiences to that. And that was my real goal. And I also went as a volunteer. I arranged to teach or to work in the English language program at Da Nang University through another veteran whom I know who volunteers there. So he set that up. So we planned to go for a month. We had about a week in country in the South just to check it out, and then 2 weeks.
It was more like the tourist type of thing of here's what Vietnam is like today?
Yeah. Although it really wasn't like the tourist thing, because we got that in Hanoi. But yeah, it was fun. We'd go down and we would just kind of see what it's like today. We went to Vung Tau, which is a place that I had been, and then to Cat Tien National Park. And I had a chance to see some of the area where I was. I mean, we didn't actually drive through it, but we were pretty close. I mean, I could see the mountains that I'm pretty sure we were in, and got a feel for how did I ever climb those mountains in this heat? We saw the villages.
Now, you were there in December.
Yeah.
And yet, this is part of the Asia that December in Asia is,
That's right.
is warm.
It's
Humid.
still miserable.
And still miserable.
And according to BBC, you have two choices for heat and discomfort: high discomfort and extreme discomfort.
That's your choice.
That's it.
And you chose the high.
We took high, yeah.
Yeah.
So we did that, and then we went to Da Nang, and we were there for 2 weeks. And that was really quite an experience. And we worked, both of us worked in the English language program. And what we did is we were the native speakers. We were there to have conversations with students who had been studying English and who found it very difficult to converse with us, because they'd talk with their instructors, they got used to them, but they're not used to the way we pronounce words. And of course, we speak very quickly to them, and they pronounce words very funny. Somebody asked me something about Christmas, and I thought they were asking me about chipmunks. Somebody asked me if I was thirsty, and I thought they asked me if I was 30. I thought, oh, thank you. So that was really challenging. And then, just I would tell them about life in the U.S., all my students got a geography lesson distinguishing between Washington State and Washington, D.C.
Yes, the two Washingtons.
Yes. So we did that. I think between us, well, actually, we each did 15 sessions with students in different parts at different levels. And then that would usually be for the most part, it would start at 5:30. So we had the day to ourselves, so we could wander around Da Nang, see the city. And what was so cool about it was like being part of the city, like living there, in the sense that we just became part of that city and had a chance to see Vietnam pretty much up close. Da Nang was very good in that it wasn't a tourist destination. You don't see many Anglos there. You go to Ho Chi Minh City, and it seems to be wall-to-wall Anglos, and everybody is basically dedicated to relieving Anglos of their money in one form or another by selling them all sorts of things. You'd sit at a restaurant, and a vendor would come by and offer something, and you'd say no, and they'd offer the second thing. And they had enough things that they could keep you saying no for a long time. And then the next one would come.
Now, did any of them recognize that you were a former infantryman in their country?
Not unless I mentioned it. I told that to the students who...
What was their reaction?
I'm not entirely sure. Communicating with the students was somewhat challenging. I did get that from, the instructor who organized this was very pleased that I came. So I got that, but the students were less so that I can recall.
Well, the one time we went out also, when we went out to coffee with the class, this time that we went out, this class group, we went out and talked to them for about 2 hours after class. They were a younger generation, and we asked them about Vietnam, the Vietnam War, which they call the American War.
The American War.
When they talk about it at all.
Yeah, they talk about it.
When they talk about it at all. Because they are more interested in developing business and looking to the future. And it did not seem to be a problem for them at all. They viewed Mark as like, well, that's what you did in the past.
And there's a very strong sense of that. Yeah, the past is past. You know those lessons, but we're in the present now, and go forward with that.
Did you meet any older gentlemen who might have been fighters in the war?
No. I mean, well, if I did, I
You wouldn't have known that?
No.
I see.
It was unlike, before I went over, Dan Ryan had given me a copy of Sewell Jones' book, Meeting the Enemy, and he talks about that, where I actually went out and met people, and that was part of his homecoming. But in my case, I didn't make that effort to identify soldiers. It was more just a chance to go see Vietnam as it was now. If I had, I wouldn't have minded meeting some soldiers, but I wasn't entirely sure how to do it.
What were some things, Maggie, you learned about Mark as a result of, going together with him to Vietnam?
That this additional trip was definitely making a big difference in the balance of his thinking and the balance of his feeling about Vietnam. He was definitely becoming more and more comfortable in the situation, because when we first showed up, he was definitely uncomfortable. We went out the first time we went out from the hotel and walked on the street, he expressed, and you could tell from how fast he wanted to go back in, he was definitely uncomfortable being out on the street. And it's not just because we were in it's not like we were out walking the street of Paris or some strange city in Europe. There was definitely this feeling like people are really looking at me, and we were the only Anglos around, but it was just more of a fear-based, like, let's just get back to the hotel. And there was one time that even after we had been there for, I think, about 2 weeks, we were in Da Nang, and we went to that Cafe Dorinley. Dorinley.
Oh, right.
And it was Christmas Eve. It was Christmas Eve. We had been invited by the owner to be there because he was very impressed that we were from the United States. So he wanted us to be there for Christmas Eve. We had stopped in previously. And so we had forgotten our camera. So Mark went back to the hotel to get the camera, or he was going to go back and get the camera. But me, I'm just thinking, this is just a matter of, because we are within walking distance, it was a short walk, a couple blocks away. I'm just thinking, it's a walk back to the hotel to get the camera. And as soon as I asked him, I realized, oh, that might be too much for Mark to do under these circumstances. And I said, well, I'll go if you're really uncomfortable, so just think about it. And so it made me aware of how different an environment this is, and he ended up going, but it really struck me then that this is really not just a regular strange city or a vacation. This is a very big deal for him.
Part of a healing process, a healing of the memories. And
To be able to walk through a town in the evening, it's not totally dark, but it was getting dark.
It was totally dark.
Oh, it was? Okay.
That I remember.
It was dark. Okay. Dark through this little city streets to the hotel and get the camera.
I mean, that was a definite recognition that, yeah, this has changed, because I didn't feel at all uneasy doing that. And where we were, I mean, we were not in the middle of the city at this point. This was more of a residential area, also been mostly rice paddies until a few years ago, and now was developing. So it's got people around, but I felt, not at all threatened. I just walked over there and walked back.
Well, Maggie mentioned camera, and we have the privilege of showing some of the pictures that you have. So why don't you walk us through some of the pictures that you took and tell us what we're seeing there.
Okay.
And we'll switch to the camera that has the pictures there.
All right, well, assuming the camera is there, I think it is. What you're seeing now is the streets of Da Nang. This is Lawan Street, which is the main street where the university is. This is a curbside bicycle repair. This guy is set up and does bicycle repair outdoors. One of the things we noticed about Vietnam is much activity takes place on the sidewalk, on the street. We have here the Song Ha Bridge, which is a swing span drawbridge. It swings out. You notice all the motorbike traffic. Da Nang streets are full of motorbikes.
Now, is this the bridge that they shut down for a few hours a day for
Yeah.
motorbikes only?
In fact, that's why we're walking, because they closed the bridge to everything but motorbikes during rush hour. And that's what it looks like at rush hour. Just wall to wall.
Wall to wall, motorbikes.
In fact, a woman dropped her sunglasses off the back of a motorbike and had to go out and pick it up, and traffic just flowed around. She got it.
Yeah.
So again, more Lawan Street.
And these are high-rise apartments or high-rise business?
Office
section?
buildings.
Office buildings?
Yeah.
There's a brand new, right by the bridge there was a brand new high-rise apartment building going up.
That's going up. And this is Maggie buying glasses in an optical shop with a street person helping her choose them.
For a fee?
Actually, no, he
No?
wouldn't take
He
any money.
just-
We finally bought him a soda.
He wouldn't take any money. I'm hoping that he got some sort of referral from the
Commission
business.
maybe from the salesperson?
I'm
there.
hoping, because he knew English pretty well.
Right.
He was definitely a help.
And again, here's more of the activity on the street. I mean, they're just set up there. It looks fairly permanent. I think everybody has their own corners.
It's wall-to-wall business. People are just busy, busy, busy.
And here's the guy actually making her glasses. And again, if you notice, this is out in the street. He's right in
So
front of
this
the
is your
shop.
optician taking
Right.
care of whatever it was that you needed for the glasses?
Yeah.
Grinding the lenses. A street vendor, she's got food and pots. You stop and give her a few dong, which is the Vietnamese currency, and you will get something. I never tried that. This is, I forgot, I think it's Tran Choa Cathedral, which is the main cathedral in Da Nang. At Christmas, I mean, it was all set up. very big. And one of the things we noticed in Vietnam, particularly in the South, churches everywhere, big churches.
Now, this hadn't been affected by the war, or this was built or rebuilt
Oh
after
no,
the
this has
war?
been, I think it's been there for some time. I don't think it was ever closed down. We saw, especially in the South around Ho Chi Minh City and Bien Hoa, I mean, it seemed like there was one of these on every block.
And this was near Christmas time, so I
Yeah.
imagine that they had quite a bit of celebrations
They
going
did.
on.
I was surprised how much Christmas was celebrated in a Buddhist country. But I think the Vietnamese just like the opportunity to celebrate.
They like the opportunity to decorate, it seemed.
Yeah. And this is the Happy Mayonnaise Lisa family. Advertising there was very, very colorful, very bright.
These people are very happy in the advertising about their mayonnaise.
About Mayonnaise Lisa.
Yes.
The street market, again, out in the street. This is Lawan Street right outside the university, and these are the holiday decorations. So it was very bright, it was very enjoyable. I mean, lots of activity.
A lot of sounds going on day and night, I imagine.
Yes.
Yes. And that's another view. It's very beautiful
Oh,
at
yeah.
night. And that's not even the most lit up street.
No. And that is the Song Ha River. You're looking toward the ocean, which is on the other side, the foot of those mountains. That's the Son Tra Mountains.
And this would be about how far from where you were stationed during
Oh.
the service?
700 kilometers. This is well away from where I was. So that gives you a pretty good idea of what Da Nang looked like. And we had, like I say, had a wonderful time seeing the city, experiencing it. And we also went to Hanoi, and that's where we got the tourist side of it because, yeah, we were part of tours. We didn't really have that much time, so we went on a tour. But just seeing Vietnam in under those circumstances, I mean, changed my whole concept. You know, right now it seems like it's wiped out all that previous experience. I think it's because it's so recent. So,
Well, what would you tell our viewing audience, particularly the Vietnam vets that are out there, about traveling to Vietnam as part of this whole healing, cleansing process?
I would tell them from my experience, it's been very good. It has really helped me understand, you know, what the war was about, you know, my role. And, you know, I've always felt guilty about being part of this war, but the Vietnamese do not hold it against us. You know, they said, well, you know, you were ordered by your government to do this, and this wasn't you, it was your government. And we've moved on, so you can too.
There were advertisements for tours for Vietnam veterans that they expect Vietnam veterans to come back. It's to that point.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll
that's
go down
great.
to the Cu Chi tunnels. You can fire M60s and M16s if you want. I didn't really need to do any of that.
Well, I think that might be for anybody, but I was surprised at the attitude and the fact that the Vietnam veterans are seemingly welcomed to come back.
Oh, that's
and-
great.
Years ago, I read Larry Heinemann's book, Black Virgin Mountain, where he and some writers went back. And that, I think, was one of the things that helped move me in that direction, was he seemed to have a really good time.
Well, I'm pleased that, Maggie, you were able to accompany Mark, and
Yeah.
I enjoy Mark's presence on Fridays at Coffee Strong, and many of the soldiers and veterans come, and Mark provides a lot of expertise in counseling them on how to get veterans benefits, but the fact that he's been there and been one of them, I've been there and listening to Mark as he relates to the people, and you could tell that he understands the mindset plus the trauma that they're going through. Mark went through that himself and is a different person today as a result of that. So I really
Yeah.
want to thank you for sharing with us tonight.
One of the statements of purpose of Veterans for Peace is to seek justice for veterans and all victims of war. The Friendship Village in Vietnam is a project that we support. And here with me to introduce a video on that project is fellow Veterans for Peace member and United States representative of the Friendship Village, Dan Ryan. Dan, thank you for being here. Welcome.
Thanks, Bob. as you said, I'm a member of the American Committee, and there are currently 8 members on that committee. And the Friendship Village was the idea of an American veteran named George Mizos, who wanted to go back to Vietnam and do some reconciliation work. And he got together with the Vietnamese government to come up with an idea. And they said, well, instead of some kind of memorial, why don't we come up with something that will really help people? So they came up with the idea of the Friendship Village. And essentially, the Vietnam Friendship Village project is a residential, medical, educational, and vocational training facility located outside of Hanoi. And there are currently 6 countries involved in the project. Besides the United States, there's Canada, Japan, Germany, France, Australia, and Vietnam. And at this point in time, I will say that the Vietnamese are actually covering more than 50% of the expenses on the village. They've really taken the project to heart. They just finished a 2-year major building project where they added a new administration building and then another building that has classrooms and also a medical outreach and consulting office in it. And the village not only serves children and older adults suffering from problems connected with Agent Orange, but it also serves people in the surrounding community. They can go for medical consultation, and there's an on-site doctor, and they are now beginning to do outreach consultation out in some of the other provinces, because they're finding people are coming from as far away as Ho Chi Minh City to get the benefits that the village offers. It specializes in working with children with developmental disabilities and who are suspected of having those disabilities because of their parents being infected with Agent Orange, the toxins of dioxin. So this next month, well, I guess this month, this will be shown in March, correct? And we'll be celebrating the 10th anniversary of the village. And there's going to be a large celebration on March 18th with current and former members of the various national committees coming and other people who have come to the village as tourists and discovered it and become supporters of it. So the village is growing in not only its physical properties, but also its reputation throughout Vietnam. In fact, we may be looking at adding a village down south, just because so many people want to take advantage of the offerings of the village. So is there anything more you want me to talk about right now before we show the film?
Well, let's take a look at the DVD.
Okay, I would like to say that Michelle Mason, who is a member of the Canadian Committee, is the writer, producer, and director of this movie.
If I had my druthers, I would never speak about Vietnam. I would just stay in my cave, read my books, take care of my flowers, and but I know that that's not the reason I survived. Friendship Village, aside from my son and Rosie, is the most important thing in my life. An extended family, a place from the beginning for me of reconciliation, of healing, of hope. Also, an important point for me is that we can make a difference in life. And I think the Friendship Village personifies that.
The Vietnam War ended more than 25 years ago, but the wounds of war take a long time to heal. On a former rice paddy outside Hanoi, a new legacy of the war is under construction. Founded in 1992, the Vietnam Friendship Village is a treatment center and community housing more than 70 children and veterans with illnesses attributed to Agent Orange. The U.S. Air Force sprayed Agent Orange during the war to remove Vietnam's dense jungles. The Vietnamese believe the dioxin in Agent Orange is responsible for more than 1 million birth defects. But the Vietnam Friendship Village is more than a place of physical healing. It is also a vision of peace, realized in the hearts and minds of those who are building it.
Well, I'm here with a bunch of Americans that are active with the International Village, Friendship Village. I came to Vietnam to come back and visit it after all these years since the war. And it gives you a whole new perspective. You know, I'm really glad that I've made this trip. Huh, aren't you?
I was a medical advisor, supervisor in the war in Hue. I did bits and pieces, and I sort of achieved a bit here and a bit there, and I come away dissatisfied with the work that I did. You know, I do things differently now, but now I've got this opportunity to help out here, which would be great.
Like now we have Germany, France, USA, England, Australia, and Japan. But our whole ideal here is to help the kids, and this is about peace and reconciliation. It's about people who have killed each other and fought and can come together and be brothers again. And especially now with what's going on in Afghanistan, we have to understand that we can come together and we don't have to kill each other and we don't have to hurt each other. There are ways, but we have to work at it and we have to find it and we have to put ourselves out to do this. Right now, the children we work with mostly, we feel they can be rehabilitated. But now we want to build this new house over here for the kids that are so severely damaged they can't really be helped. All you can do is work with them.
Agent Orange has also affected the health of veterans exposed to the herbicide, including George Mizo, the village's founder. To him, the Friendship Village is a living symbol of the potential for transformation that began with his journey to heal the wounds of war.
The roots of the Friendship Village stem from the desire of veterans from France, Japan, Great Britain, the United States, and Vietnam, who have come to the conclusion that we must find non-violent means to resolve conflict, and who want the Friendship Village to be an example of how people from different countries, different cultures, and different backgrounds, even former enemies, can put aside those differences to work together to create something that represents hope, healing, reconciliation.
Quand nous avons eu cette idée, on nous a pris un peu pour des gens un peu fous, même peut-être très fous, parce que l'idée était belle, mais beaucoup de gens n'y croyaient pas. C'était d'abord, au départ, sur l'avenir heureux de l'humanité.
To oversee the project, the Vietnamese government created Vietnam's first veterans organization, electing General Tran Van Quang as its president. General Quang had been the field commander of all troops in Georgia's area during the war. He was also the man who had planned and led the battle at Khe Sanh, killing George Mizo's entire platoon.
The battle that I described previously, the Battle of Khe Sanh, General Quang was leading that battle and actually fighting in it. And we've talked a lot about it after that night, over the years.
Đúng là trong cái thời chiến tranh ấy, thì tôi cũng không biết anh Mizo là ở đâu. Nhưng mà trong làm thiết kế một cái trận chiến đấu, sẽ đánh xong rồi, kết quả sau này gặp nhau, kể lại thì mới biết rằng lúc đó là tôi và anh Mizo là hai người gặp nhau ở trên mặt trận. Không có thể biết nhau trước được. Nhưng mà rất may rằng là chúng tôi lại được gặp nhau sau hòa bình và làm bạn với nhau.
He's a beautiful human being.
He was a baby when General Quang first had him.
We formed a bond over the years. It's just never in my wildest expectations would I have believed it. Thank you. He said, please, when you go back to the United States, tell the American people we don't hate the American people. We did not drop our troops into the cornfields of Ohio or into this beautiful country to kill their children.
Chúng tôi luôn luôn nhận thức rằng người Mỹ là có hai lớp người khác nhau. Một lớp người là đại đa số nhân dân Mỹ là tốt, là những người bạn của chúng tôi. Chúng tôi nhớ luôn hình ảnh của hàng trăm, hàng chục ngàn người Mỹ biểu tình để phản đối cuộc chiến tranh ở Việt Nam. Chỉ còn một thiểu số là đại biểu cho những cái công ty độc quyền về vũ khí, đó là những người ham muốn chiến tranh xâm lược.
More bombs were dropped over Vietnam and neighboring Laos and Cambodia than all of Europe during World War II. Unexploded bombs and